A funny thing happened in the Senate last night in Canberra. The Senate brought forth a matter of public importance, what's described as an urgency motion, where United Australia Party Senator Babette, that's one of Clive Palmer's team from down south, put forth this motion that they debate as a matter of urgency that there be a royal commission into Australia's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, it's been 16 months, apparently, since now Labor Senator Katie Gallagher backed a royal commission into Australia's pandemic response. And it's been over a year since now Prime Minister Anthony Albanese promised there would be a royal commission or a similar inquiry into our response to the pandemic. Before I speak with the senator who voted for the matter, let me play you what Angus Taylor told the National Press Club a couple of months back about the government's handling then of the pandemic.
Now, we all remember the challenge before us in March 2020, and we probably would prefer to forget, is the reality. But a crisis that required difficult decisions, required governments of all persuasions to challenge their instincts, was in front of us at that time. It required policymakers to respond to the demands at the time and do so quickly, without the luxury of time. And that's exactly what we did. And because of these policies, Australia achieved a remarkable V-shaped recovery and emerged from the pandemic in a better position than most or all countries we benchmark ourselves against. Record low unemployment, record number of apprentices in training, and a budget that from the moment the East Coast states reopened was in surplus. From the moment the East Coast states opened up. From November 2021, when Victoria and New South Wales left lockdown, to today, the Department of Finance has published 17 months of financial accounts. The monthly figures show that from the moment the East Coast emerged from lockdown and travel restrictions began to ease, the government experienced a net underlying cash balance surplus of $33 billion. That's going back to November 2021. As respected economist Chris Richardson has pointed out, the net debt to GDP has returned to where it was prior to the pandemic.
Angus Taylor, these days Shadow Treasury spokesperson, back then he was in the government that handled the lockdown. So last night the Senate had a vote on this. Let's go to Senator Gerard Rennick, LNP Senator for Queensland. You voted for a debate about a need for a royal commission. Why, Senator Rennick?
Well, Steve, good evening to your listeners. Those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And I think that we need to assess everything that went on throughout the 2 years of the COVID pandemic. I think that there were mistakes made, and I think that we need to be honest about those mistakes. And, we have to have a level of accountability and transparency over what took place. And in particular, for the first 18 months, premiers were locking down, locking up, locking out people. Many people were unable to see loved ones, as they were passing away. Pregnant mothers couldn't cross borders to get proper hospital care. So those are the things that we need to look at and ask ourselves, whether or not the government could have handled it better. But
celebrities were able to fly in. That one still puzzles me that celebrities were still able to fly here, but people who lived in their own state weren't allowed in.
That's exactly right, Steve. And I mean, who can forget in November, December 2021, when thousands of Queenslanders were locked out of the state and had to live in tents and find accommodation in northern New South Wales, even though they didn't have COVID. And, if that is an abuse of human rights, well, I don't know what is.
The New South Wales state government has actually just sent a bill to Queensland for $100 million for their hand trying to house those people. Should Queensland pay?
Look, I would argue that they should actually, because I don't see, provided those people didn't have COVID, and even if they did have COVID, I don't see why they couldn't have done their quarantine in their homes. So I think, the Queensland Premier needs to explain why she implemented such draconian measures.
My guess is LNP Senator for Queensland, Gerard Rennick. So I played you what Angus Taylor said to the National Press Club earlier this year, sort of defending their handling of the... You're in the same party. Is there anything there you disagree with?
Well, look, the economy has bounced back fairly strongly in terms of the government budget. That's the division I'll have to go in a couple of minutes. So in that regard, look, that's all true, but that's not what I think the main purpose of the Royal Commission needs to be. The main purpose of the Royal Commission needs to be whether or not the lockdowns, the lockouts and the lockups were too draconian. I think we need to have an honest assessment of what the origin of COVID was. We need to test the diagnostic tool and scrutinise the diagnostic tool that was used to determine whether or not people had a positive COVID test. I myself asked the TGA if they could provide that information in the last set of estimates, and they, as of yet, haven't done that. We need to obviously look at the vaccine mandates and the vaccine injuries and the compensation scheme. And then we also need to look at the role of National Cabinet and whether or not that could have been improved as well. Because, there were, the daily press conferences, for example, where we had the state premier coming out and saying there was COVID in the sewerage. And for a number of months, we had no COVID cases, yet the premier was still coming out every day, saying there were no COVID cases, and then promised we would never lock down again. Yet in the first weekend of January 21, there was one COVID case in Brisbane, and she shut the town down for 3 days on 8 hours notice. So a lot of businesses lost a lot of money. They were forced to close down that weekend. Yet again, it turned out even though this particular person had a number of close contacts, COVID didn't spread. So, why did we shut down Brisbane for 3 days when it didn't seem to be necessary?
Labor voted against the motion. Are you surprised? Labor and the Greens.
Yeah, look, I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised. And it's typical of what we've seen in the last 15 months where the Albanese Labor government has promised one thing and then done another. But look, we will continue to press for this. We believe that it is extremely important to have an inquiry. We'll come back again. Earlier this year, we tried to get a Senate inquiry up as well, and that was also voted down. But we had a tie this time. It was 29 votes all. A couple of senators aren't here this week, so we may look at trying to at least get a Senate inquiry up at the very least.
All right. Sounds like I have to let you go to your division in the Senate. Thanks for coming on, Senator Gerard Rennick.
Yeah, thanks very much, Steve.
Senator Gerard Rennick, LNP Senator for Queensland.
Authorised G. Rennick, LNP Chermside.